I'm Erica Lynn, and we all know the ocean is the most demanding environment on Earth, consistently testing the reliability and durability of our equipment. When you spend as much time fishing as I do, you know that reliable gear is essential for staying on the water. This is why I went with the Abyss battery to power my trolling motor, electronics, and outboard. The guys at Abyss Battery are rattling the saltwater industry by manufacturing performance marine batteries specifically designed for sonar, outboards, trolling motors, and electronic fishing reels. They're also Bluetooth compatible, so I found checking battery statuses right on your phone while you're out on the water is a huge game changer. To learn more about why Abyss batteries are used by the pros and factory installed by premier boat builders, visit abyssbattery.com.
Isn't the point of traveling to get away from it all? To feel the best you've ever felt? Then maybe you should check out Aruba. You'll spend your time relaxing on cool, white, sandy beaches and floating in healing blue water. You'll meet locals brimming with gratitude for an island that redefines what a paradise can be. When your trip comes to an end, you won't need another vacation because you just had the vacation. That's the Aruba effect. Plan your trip at Aruba.com.
Hello and welcome to the Publicly Challenged Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Oswald, and I hope you join me on my quest for knowledge to become a better public land hunter, angler, and forager. Stick with this and who knows, maybe we will learn something together. Okay, so I'm sitting here and I am going to be talking to Mark LIVESAY, but before we get started, I want to talk about his e-scouting course just real quick one more time. I've been doing it and going through it, and I'm not even completely through it. I think I'm like 17 or 18 modules into it, and now he keeps adding more on me, so I feel like I'm never going to get finished. But that's a good thing, because now I'm continually learning. And while I'm learning, I'm also learning it's not only for elk. It can be adapted to so many other things like deer hunting. And I just want to tell you guys that are listening that Mark has given me a promo code to save you guys money and save $20 off of his course, Treeline Academy, for e-scouting. And then there's going to be some more things, I believe, added to that. Right, Mark?
I'm hoping for that.
Okay.
That's the master plan.
All right, so the code is PC2020. PC2020 will save you $20 when you sign up and get some serious knowledge. But today, we're not even going to talk about that. We're not even talking about e-scouting, Mark.
We're going to try not to say one word about e-scouting, huh?
We're going to talk about dehydrated foods and backcountry meals because I recently, as you know, just got a new dehydrator. And I have been going nuts with it. So that's what we're going to talk about.
It's my second favorite topic.
Well, who doesn't like food? I mean, I am a fat kid and I love food.
Well, so. I did 15 years of triathlon and I did 11 Ironmans in my career. And I never was accused of being skinny during any of those times. So
that's pretty interesting though, that, you know, a bigger boy really got in there and got after it like that.
I wasn't, and now
I'm not
Lucas,
saying big. You were a lot smaller then.
I wasn't that big then. I'm a little bigger now. I weighed 170 when I did 175-ish when my peak. But I raced a lot around 200 pounds. A lot of my career was about 200. So
that's right where I'm sitting at, and that's about 18 pounds bigger than I need to be. But
at 200 pounds is my fighting weight. At 200 pounds, I'm like pretty lean.
Yeah, I need to get down.
When I'm at 175, I was packing my lunch. No kidding. I was packing my lunch in what we used to call back in those days portion trays, where we'd only give ourselves so many cups of, carbs, cups of whatever.
Yeah, counting macros. Yeah,
exactly, measured out. And I was taking my own food to Thanksgiving dinner.
Ugh, that sounds miserable, Mark.
Yeah, it was miserable. I did it for a couple of years like that. And Christmas, Thanksgiving, I'm pulling out my Tupperware, eating at the table when everybody else has got, whatever else is out there. And it was brutal. But
I mean, I got to admit, what's crazy is like my bulk of my weight comes from sweets. Reese's peanut butter cups are my freaking nemesis. And here's the weird part, right? So like I try to eat pretty much paleo-ish. I will say ish because I add a little bit of dairy in there as far as like cheeses and
And
things like
some
that.
peanut butter
And
cups.
peanut butter cups. I can't help it, man. I will go like 2 weeks without them, and then one day I'll just break down. I'm like, I'm a fiend, and it's like, okay. And at work sometimes we got them too, and they stick a whole bag of them in the freezer, and I'll grab like 4 of them and just eat them. And then the next day I'm like, man, I shouldn't. And it's just a pattern that repeats itself until I get enough willpower to stay away from them for a couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm not a sweets guy. I've never been that much of a dessert guy. Thank goodness. I've got all kinds of other problems, but that's not one of them.
Well, to be honest, I wasn't really either until I quit drinking. That's what I never used to touch sweets. I never ate even if it was my birthday, I wouldn't even have a piece of cake because I didn't like it. I didn't care. But then it was weird. It was like once the alcohol was gone, the
So
sweets.
that better not. So what you're saying is I better not quit drinking
You
beer
better
because
not
that's
quit
good.
drinking because you'll be a peanut butter cup eating machine.
Man,
But anyway, so let's talk about meals. Right now, like the biggest thing in my house is the fruit leathers. My kids like one of them loves the old Lamper's mountain candy with the sweet
yeah,
potato leathers, and she asked me, she goes, "Dad, do we have any more of the orange ones?" And I go, "No, I'm sorry, honey. You guys really,
that's
I
so
probably
good.
ate them all, but then the other kid, whether it's like wild berries, whether we're picking wild berries and filling up a bucket, or we're doing like the other day we were at the store and they had a case of it was a fresh market and they had a case full of raspberries, so we bought the whole thing. We already blended those up and put them on, and they're just tearing them up. But you know what, the way I see it is they're getting fiber, they're getting fruit, and it's better than eating some type of artificial corn syrup or something. So
Well, just like to start things off with that, with the fruit leathers and even the dehydrated, even the fruit, which we can talk more about too. But um, the kind of the key for us and what I've started is when farmers market is cranked up, or when the local, like there's a couple houses around ours that have apple trees, and when you got apple trees, it's either feast or famine. You've got like apples galore and you can't give them away, and then in the winter you've got nothing.
yep.
And so, what we started doing was just trying to take advantage of those seasonal things when you can buy them cheaper. Not only buying them cheaper, but better quality, and then and working those up and dehydrating those and bagging those. And the fruits we like to take. There's a lot of ways to do the fruit, but we like to take it to a pretty dry state, almost like a chip, where
Yeah.
there's just like with apples, it's got a little chewiness to it, but it's pretty dry. Now you can obviously like the fruit that you buy in the store that's dehydrated is much more moisture rich. But for me, taking it into the backcountry, and now this was kind of pre llamas, so now that I have llamas, I probably would take it a little heavier.
Yeah.
But I have pack llamas now, so I don't worry about the weight that I used to worry about it. But that's one of the reasons we got kind of into the more dried fruits, was because I was doing it that way, um, just to kind of save some weight too. And so I don't know if have you done pineapple yet?
I have. It's awesome. It turns into like little
Well,
pieces of candy.
yeah, but didn't it hurts your mouth if you eat so much of it? Didn't it make your mouth sore, your cheeks? Like the acid is so concentrated that it's like eating like a whole pack of sweet tarts at once or something.
No, I didn't get that. I only had a few pieces though. The kids
Oh,
tore it
if you
up.
eat if
So
you eat too much of it, it kind of gives this. It makes your cheeks raw almost, and but so good, man. The pineapple's my favorite, no doubt, and the kiwi. So kiwi and the pineapple are really hometown favorites, and the
so
banana chips.
when you do the
So, but
kiwi, do you peel it or do you just slice it and put it on there? What do you do?
I peel them. I do peel them. But I don't know. Can you eat the outside of kiwi? I don't. I've never eaten
I
it
know one guy
actually, to
that
be honest.
does. Only one guy,
Oh,
and
really?
he just takes
Okay.
it and bites it like an apple. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, just extra fiber, no big deal.
Well, Ryan Lampers, we might as well introduce him to this concept. The guy, he's like the king of dehydrating. That's where I've learned most of
Right.
my stuff from him. But they do orange slices with the peels on, and when they're dehydrated, they're incredible.
I
Um,
haven't done that.
I know, but normally you couldn't do it. You couldn't. You probably. I mean, I don't know. Some people may, but it's too toxic for me in its normal state. But yeah, they do those things with the peels on them, and they're pretty good. Pretty good. The key with fruit, the tip with fruit, and I know you're just getting into this. You may already know this
Well,
already, but
I don't get me wrong. I have done it in the past, and I have
yeah.
a
So
dehydrator that's round trays. But now that I
okay.
can put parchment on there and those big nonstick silicone sheets, I've taken it to a whole new level.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah,
man. I want to get into that because I want to ask you some questions. I use parchment paper almost exclusively. It's like the parchment paper is like the holy grail of dehydrating.
it's helpful.
Um,
Yeah,
you can almost get away with everything with that. But it's got its uses, and I'm sure it's got its limitations too for some degree. But when it comes to the fruit, one of the most important things you can do is to buy a slicer. I did it for a while, hand slicing it, but you just cannot control the quality of the thickness like you can with a slicer. And when it comes to dehydrating, consistency is everything. And if your apple slices or pineapple, whatever you're doing, if they're the same thickness, they obviously turn out way better. So I would really highly recommend even the cheapest of slicers work for fruit.
so now, are you
Um,
talking like you're not talking like a meat slicer? You're talking like a mandolin or something like that that you can set the blade and cut.
Anything. I mean, I have
Yeah,
a meat slicer. I
Eh,
mean, mine's a small meat slicer.
you cut your fruit on the meat
Um,
slicer.
yeah, it's a small, where I can adjust the thickness as well, obviously.
Really?
But it's a small, you got to be careful. You'd be cutting your fingers off with the thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it doesn't matter what there's a lot of options out there. I see like these little food processor things as well will cut pretty consistent. The key is cutting the thickness consistently, and just with a knife and a cutting board, it just can't be done, in my opinion. I haven't met a person yet that can slice everything, the perfect thickness. And you can play around with the thicknesses too with some things with high moisture content, like pineapple. We talked pineapple. You can get away with pretty thick pieces of pineapple,
Yeah.
and but bananas, I can't. They get mushy and they don't dehydrate well. They get like a coating on them. You'll notice like with bananas, they'll stick to air. I mean, they're like you got to pry them off of everything.
I think like the other thing is foods with like a high citric acid in them.
Right,
They tend to preserve better, and retain color and everything, like oranges or pineapple
right.
and things like that.
Well, the lemon juice mixed with water and spraying it on your fruit, your stuff, keeps it from doing that as well. There's a lot of tricks to kind of keeping your fruit looking, but I don't worry about it too much. Personally, I don't think it affects the flavor all that much. I think it's more of a cosmetic thing.
Yeah, it's absolutely what it
Um,
is. Yeah.
yeah, so I don't worry about it all that much, but I do the apples with the skin on. I do obviously pineapple, I skin it, obviously. Kiwi, I do skin it. Um, the banana chips that I make, I really like banana chips for a lot of reasons. In the backcountry, when you're hunting, particularly the bananas, if you like bananas, I mean, if you don't like bananas, you don't want to dehydrate bananas if you don't like bananas because they're very banana-y.
I like them.
if,
I like the
if
banana
that's a
chips.
word.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
made them.
So, but the potassium load that they give you, it's almost like an instant healing effect
Yeah.
when you're tired and worn out. A lot of guys are using electrolyte tablets of some kind, fizz, noons, and different kinds of things. But man, those banana chips are really gold for a little calorie replacement. But even more importantly, putting that potassium back in your body. Um, They're excellent resource for that. And I like to, again, with the banana chips, I like to dehydrate them pretty thorough. I like them more of a chip with a little pliability, but not much.
Yeah, I like to
Uh,
be able to bite it and break it.
yeah,
As
that's
long as you can get it, yeah, if you can get it thin enough. And I've done quite a bit of those in the past. I just haven't done any lately. But we take,
yeah,
and with the bananas, they turn like, I've noticed they turn like a real kind of nasty dark color sometimes if you let them
they
sit.
do.
But my wife always puts that ball canning. It's fresh fruit, which is basically just concentrated citric acid, and
Yeah,
she sprinkles that on them, and it tends to help.
it does help
Yeah.
the bananas too.
But yeah, no, I agree as far as like the nutrition aspect because if you're just eating, and no offense to Mountain House, and some guys love it, and it's great. Personally, we already talked, I don't eat the grains or anything like that, so it really made it tough for me, and that's when I started seeking other options, and I was like, man, I think I'm gonna commit to this so I can go grain free and start making some options because one, most of my options are even more expensive than your average options, and two, there's not that many of them. There's maybe three companies that make it to where there's 100% grain-free meal to where it's got and the other thing is the protein content. I like a lot of meat. I like high protein and I want that in my meal. And if I'm not getting that, well, now I guess I got to make them. So
Well, and even if you do find a few options, you're going to be on a 7-day hunt. You're going to be eating the same meal virtually every night.
yes, that's
So
the other
you've
thing.
got some diversity. You're creating, not only a healthier, I don't even want to say healthier because some of the newer meals that are out are fairly healthy. I mean, there's no
Yes.
doubt about it.
Well, that's
So
like
that's not really, yeah. So it's not really because you can't find a healthy alternative. It's more of choices and cost.
yep.
Um, my situation was when I got into this, when I was hunting, I probably averaged for elk hunting wise, let's just say for elk hunting, I ate dehydrated meals maybe a few other times, but for the most part, let's just limit it to elk hunting. When I was hunting 14 to 20 days a year for elk, which is what I averaged for most of my career, um, I can get by with Mountain House for 14 days a year, broken up to a couple hunts. Not that bad. But this year, particularly, I mean, I'm going to be upwards of 65 days just elk hunting. And so, I mean, I'll probably go through over 100 meals this year, at least 100. I'm planning on 100, 120 meals total, counting a few breakfasts, whatever. But you can't, well, I shouldn't say this. I do not want to put 100 mountain houses in my body.
No.
Um, there's a place for that stuff. But when you look on a mountain house and you see the expiration date, I'm looking at one right now that says 2046. And I'm like, well, that's a long time from now. And there's a,
That's just
there's a
because it's freeze
reason.
dried, though, Mark. I mean, yes, it has a lot of sodium in it that helps, and it kills a lot of the things in it. But that's because it's freeze dried. Let's.
Yeah, well, let's be honest. And when you look at the package, you just got to look at the ingredients and that'll straighten you out right
Yeah,
away.
without a doubt.
But again, so it's not, we're not here to bash Mountain because, dude, I've got a bunch of Mountain House sitting here right now in my little that I had left over from when I first switched 5 years ago. It's just I've never eaten it since. Um, and so guys that are doing 7 to 10 days of hunting every year, that's all they're doing. I don't know that going for the meal prep is a reason to get into this business 100%. But if you take it the approach that like you're doing, we were talking about this before we got on. I think your kids and the fruit leathers and starting to experiment with some other things. I mean, there's so many other things you can do in addition to just doing backcountry meals that are available with that. And I mean, let's just be honest with this COVID mess we're in, and I mean, all that we're open, we're shut down, we can buy groceries, we can't buy. I mean, we got to wear a mask. We don't wear a mask. I mean, nobody knows what's up. And having a little control and having a little bit of resources, there's nothing wrong with that either.
Nope.
So there's a lot of reasons that you might want to consider taking the leap to do this. And I'm sure we're going to get into this in the podcast, but I've learned a lot of things about it, and you're learning too, and it's exciting to see you getting into it as well. But you started out like most guys, including myself, with the round center vacuum air dehydrator.
Yep.
And those are just fine for a lot of things. But when you get into meal preparations and you get into liquids and you get into like consistency from the inside to the outside, and you're trying to get more, I don't want to say commercial, but high volume, predictable times, you just got to make the step up to more of a commercial rear vacuum, rear airflow unit.
Yeah.
And I know you might want to talk about the one you got. There's a lot of great brands out there. I'm not here to promote one brand or the other. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'm not here to really promote one brand or another either, but the brand I got was made with meat, and I got to say it's awesome. Before that,
and I'm getting ready to get one of those myself.
Yeah, so before that I had a Nesco. I had one of the
Yeah.
Nescos that you could buy the additional trays. It was round, but the problem is the air comes in from the top. So
Yeah.
either every couple hours you go and you change the order of those trays and take
Yeah.
the bottom and start rotating them, or else you don't get an even dry. So now all your
Right.
stuff on top is done and your stuff on the bottom is still
And
wet.
that's what I was trying to allude to on that
Yeah.
without being
Yeah.
yeah. But and like for some things that works, but man, I'm making hundreds and hundreds of meals a year. I mean, between my wife and me and my kids, now I've got friends, unfortunately, that have convinced my wife to make their meals. So we're charging guys for meals and making them for them. Now, don't be emailing me because we're not doing it anymore.
There's the next
But
business right there, Mark.
that's definitely not my business. And if you get killed, if you get botulism for many of our meals, and I'm not liable for that either. So, but I mean, we're doing well. Let me just think about this. I bought 250 bags last year, Mylar bags, and I just made a reorder. So in 12 months, I went through 250 meal bags.
So let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about materials that are needed other than obviously a dehydrator. You can use anything to start out, but I'm guessing once anybody gets going in this, they're going to want something that has the fan in the back of it so it dries all the trays evenly, like we just
don't even tell people that, because you don't want them to buy a Nesco or buy any of the Circle ones and then spend the money on that and then have to spend the money on.
Okay, so let me rephrase that.
Just bypass
if you already have a dehydrator at home, maybe play with it and try it. But
Right.
if you're going to spend the money, just spend the money and get one that you're going to be happy with.
Save your money.
Yeah.
And get one. Get the meat. Get the Cabela's 80 liter.
Or the Excalibur. Yeah.
Or the Excalibur. That's the three that I know they work extremely well. Ryan's been raving about the meat one. You've been raving about it.
He messaged me about it. He's like, "Hey man, that's the one I've been running. It's great."
Well, and Ryan has Excaliburs.
Yeah,
so,
that's true. Yeah.
So he's a good comparison. I've got Cabela's 80 liters. But I'm at capacity. I'm going to add a second unit. So I'm going to add that meat as my second unit because, I can do about 8 meals. If I load that thing to the hilt, I can do about 8 meals in that 80 liter per cycle. So, there's a lot more. I'm sure we're going to get some comments and people, oh, you forgot to mention this. But I know these work, and I know they work extremely well. The Cabela's version, if you like Cabela's products, and they tend to stand by them pretty well. Since Bass Pro bought them a couple years ago, I don't know. Seems like they're still going strong and everything's still good. But
Well, isn't it
I
uh, that brand is like an LEM Products, I believe.
that's right. It's an LEM. I am a huge LEM fan.
Yeah.
So I'm a big LEM meat processing guy, but I probably will be making the switch to the meat
Yeah.
brand. So I'm hoping to work with them in the future. And I'm real excited about trying some of their products. They're kind of I would say they're new on the market, but man, their stuff looks incredible and really high quality made. I was really impressed with the pictures you sent. Anyway, I think those are really good. So spend the money, when I say rear fan, what you mean by that really is that the entire back of the unit is basically an exhaust fan. So it's exhausting let's say, for example, in mine's a 15 tray unit. It's exhausting all of the air equally amongst all 15 trays.
Yep. Yep.
Is basically what we're trying to say here. And most of these units do it with a rear exhaust. The ones we've talked about, at
I
least.
think
Yours
that
is
the meat is not a rear exhaust. I think it comes out of the front, but the fan is in the back with the heating element.
but it pulls it out, and then it has a duct work that brings it out the front, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So that you can slide it up against something.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. It's
And
got
I
little
think
vents
there's a
on the
couple.
front.
Yeah. So mine exhausts right out the back.
Okay.
Um,
My wife made
but
me move it into the basement because it has not stopped running since I bought it. No BS.
well,
Like it'll have like maybe an hour or two if I'm sleeping or something, and then when I get up, I throw something else on there. It's a continuous rotation so far, Mark.
man, you're going crazy. You're using more use than mine.
I've even well anyway, I'm getting off topic, but let's get
So
back into the
since you
gear.
so the gear. So since you said that, so you want to keep in mind that these things are not small.
No, it's my wife.
So
Let me
if you're
just
going to
say
put it
that.
on, if you're going to put it on your countertop, you got to have some counter space. So, and your house is going to smell like what you're dehydrating, like
Yes.
strongly. So mine's down in my meat processing room in my basement, and which is where my office and my film studio is for my. Oh, I'm not going to say it, but for my work that I do, and what little work that I do. And so I'm always down here, recording modules while I'm smelling chili being dehydrated. But you got to think about that, because people that live in like apartments and things like, it's not that you can't do it. You just got to be prepared.
Yeah. It's true.
I mean,
Yeah.
is that a fair statement?
Yes. So yeah, that is definitely a little service announcement there that please be considerate of others and realize what you're putting in there. Um, yeah. But so my wife, when I first got that dehydrator, she texts me and she goes, "Your behemoth of a dehydrator just got here." She goes, "Where are you going to put that thing?" And I don't know but the movie Christmas Vacation with Clark Griswold, where he's talking to the neighbors when they're talking to him about the Christmas tree, and then I sent her that little GIF. I texted her that, and it's like, "Bend over and I'll show you." You got a lot of nerve talking to me like that, Griswold. But so I did that, and then after I had it running constantly, and we've got this heat wave. I don't know what it's like up there in Montana, but we've got this
It's
heat
about
wave.
60. It's a heat wave.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, we've been in the 90s. So she's like, "You're just making it hot in this house constantly. Move that thing down to the basement." So I had to set up a little area down in the basement, and that's where I've been doing it now.
Yeah, it's just something you got to be, you got to be ready for that. And you also want to make sure you get one that has a range. Whatever some of these, well, like the Nesco. I'm not picking on the Nesco, but the donut dehydrators,
Yeah. Yeah.
they don't have the range of heat, and it's not consistently. So you want to make sure that whatever unit you get that has an adjustable thermostat, it's just not static, which most of them do have adjustability, but 105 to 165 is kind of what the commercial ones do. Because you'll want 165 if you're trying to do like, beef jerky and things like that. And, anything that's like uncooked, you'll want to be more towards the high end
Yep.
of that number. If you're going to be doing cooked meals and dehydrating, like you're making a meal for rehydration, you're going to be, in that 130 to 135 degree range, maybe even 140-ish in that range. Once you get above 140, you're kind of almost starting to cook it
Yep.
a little bit. So, and then, we talked about the solid fan, and then the timer is crucial. A lot of these don't even have timers. You just let them run, and when you come back in, you turn them off. And, it just makes it where you got to be around. And so I think with a little forethought, get the right temperature range, get the right timers, get the rear fans, whatever you go with, you're looking pretty good if you go that route.
Yeah, I think the meat's got, I think it's like 24 hours or something like that, 26 hours.
Yeah, that's great.
So, yeah, and yeah, I've utilized that. But so let's talk about other things besides the dehydrator. So,
Okay.
I have bought Mylar bags in the past.
Yeah.
Let me say that it's an expensive thing if you're buying them, and if I'm not making as many meals as you are, like I still have a surplus of bags, and some of them I ordered, and they were kind of the wrong size. And I get them from I've gotten them before from like Ready-Made Resources and Lehman's, I believe, is the other one that I've gotten them from. But it's like you got to buy like 500 of them.
Yeah.
And you could do it
So
on Amazon, but it's hit or miss.
that's right. Well, this is probably good as time as any to announce a few things. So I've noticed that as well. And to get the really good Mylar, now there's a couple things about Mylar. You got to be careful about Mylar bags. Mylar bags are not approved for food unless they are. Does that make sense?
Yes. No. Yes.
And they can put off some toxins that are not good for you if once you introduce that boiling water or heat them to a certain point, it could be problematic. So you want to make sure that you are getting a food grade Mylar bag. And, some of them say they leach chemicals once you get above 180 degrees.
Well,
So if they're not the food,
212, so
that's right.
yeah.
So you're going to be, you're at the border there of the capabilities. So what I'm planning to do is when I finish my course that I'm on now, that we're not mentioning,
right.
My next course, I'm kind of going in, here's the thing, Lucas, I am not and never will proclaim to be an expert on a lot of things, but there's three things in the hunting realm that I feel like I've got something to contribute to the community. Number one, and my first passion is e-scouting. I mean, I've almost treated it like an educational experience as far as that goes.
Yes.
So I've just studied it. I've spent a lot of time in it. My second is doing these meals. I just love it. I've learned a couple things from you today. We'll try to talk about that. Really exciting. I never even tried it. So, but that's the great thing about it. I mean, there's always things to try and do new things. So that, and then meat processing is another one of my big ones. And I can't say for sure between dehydrated meals or processing my own meat, which I'm probably, more passionate about, so to speak. But both of those will be courses that will be coming up next because there's just such a need for it. Guys are really not guys and gals and families, and we can talk about this too. I've switched to this. Really are looking for these kinds of advice, guidance, help, cut the learning curve down, just like we, with the e-scouting class, just cutting that curve down, not making mistakes, spending money wisely, buying the right things first, and not having to repeat mistakes over and over that people have already done.
Yep.
And so the bags. So part of my course that's going to be coming is you can do the course, or you can do the course plus supplies, meaning you get the bags and whatever quantity you want with the course. And or you can, I'm hoping to have a deal, hopefully with me. We haven't even talked, who knows. I'm just going to throw
Yeah.
it out there in case they listen to this.
Well, let's just say
I'm,
it's a cool company, so we hope so, right?
yeah, it's a cool company. I'm going to them first, no doubt about it. But I want to do a full package where you get the slicer, you get the dehydrator, you get the vacuum sealer, you get your however many bags you want, and you just get going with good quality, ready to go stuff. So the point on the bags is if you can buy them from these, from these wholesalers, because remember, these guys are used to selling to coffee companies, and that you buy the coffee in the Mylar bags and whatever. They're just used to the volume that the individual people, to get the price down to the 25 cents or 50 cents a bag, which is great, you got to buy a lot of bags. And but that's where we're at. So I'm going to start offering I'm going to buy the bags in bulk, the ones I've tested, the two that I use the most, which we can talk about if you want.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I use two kinds. One is a single serve meal, like we've been talking about.
Yep.
And the other, you and I hadn't even talked about this, was I do a family size bag, a stand up family size bag that will serve like 4 or 5. So, for example, we'll go with the llamas or we'll go camping. We'll be floating all day. We'll decide we're going to have chili dogs or something. I guess you can have that, right? That's not green.
Well, I don't eat the
And,
beans either, but
oh, man, what is wrong with you?
just trying to be clean, man. But
Oh, geez. Well, for the rest of the world, the real life livers that are out there,
listen, Mark, if
what?
Amy did all the cooking too, I'm sure you would eat a lot healthier than you do, and I guarantee you there wouldn't be any pieces of spam in your pack.
Now, if you bring spam up in the presence of my wife, it's very, very ticked off. So we may have to bring that up in a minute. But so the point is, I do these. These are much bigger bags. They're like 13 inches, but they're 9 by 13 by 4, and they hold 7 to 8 cups. And what's really great about those is you can do a whole family meal. You can cut the top off the bag, and it's a serving bowl.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So like stews, chilies, I mean, whatever's on your diet, just pure meat. I mean, whatever you're a carnivore now diet, so whatever, just got raw roast beef in there, whatever you got. But the point is, I kind of concentrate on those two bags. And what I like about the second bag, the bigger bag, is it's almost double the density of the individual bag. It's more rugged. It's more designed for like the family use type on the table. I guide trips in Yellowstone, and when we take clients in, I dehydrate a lot of meals like this so we can do it like this. We can serve it right out of the bag. And it's great. It's really great.
So
But again,
what's the thickness on those bags, Mark? Is it like a five mil
I
or
knew you were
something?
going to ask, right? I knew you were going to ask me that.
I'm pretty sure. I want to say it's a higher thickness than, especially like I've ordered some on Amazon just to try them out that were quote unquote food grade, but they're a super thin bag, and I've actually
No, I know,
I've
dude. I
had some
know.
things that have punctured them.
No, I want to get into that. I've got some comments about that.
Yeah.
I've got the webpage up here now, but the minimum you can buy is 250.
Yes.
And at 250 you're still paying decent amount of money. So what I want to do is buy them by the tens of thousands and repackage these things so that guys can get them in a more manageable number.
Yeah.
Almost like we're going to do it as a group buy, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's all, it's just like anything. I mean, it's a volume business. I mean, I can't stand it. What is the mill on these things?
So let's talk about while we're doing that.
4.3 mils.
Okay, yeah, so it's almost 5 mil. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
I knew they
these
were
bigger
heavier
bags.
bags. Yeah.
Now these are the bigger ones. The other ones are a little bit, but even my lighter bags, I've never had one puncture in 5 years. And I've mentioned I do a lot,
Yeah.
and I've never had. Now, one of the things that I do. So do you want to talk? Let's go in order here. Do you want to talk any more about bags, or you think we kind of covered that?
Well, I think we kind of covered it, but
now there's some other things you can do with bags. Okay, you can if you're really price conscious and you're just trying to get by, and you can get by with freezer quality Ziploc, high quality freezer Ziploc bags. They will hold the boiling water to a certain point.
Yep.
It is not ideal. I'm just going to be honest with you. The other thing that I have experimented with, and it works extremely well, is the sous vide bags.
Yeah, the vacuum seal bags. Yep.
Those cook in sous vide bags, and basically, a vacuum seal bag, but it's a sous vide bag. They're a little bit more pricier than like a Mylar bag, but they are available in smaller quantities. So, and they're clear. So you can see in them a little bit, but they don't stand up. That's
what I was going to get at. They don't stand up.
And they don't have
the
the Ziploc. They don't have the Ziploc seal. So you got to be careful about all that.
I mean, think of how crappy it would be, though. You're sitting on the side of a mountain, beautiful country, tired from a day elk hunting. You pour your water in that, you set it there, and next thing you know, you turn around and look at something, and boom, you knock it over. I would be devastated
that's scary. That's scary. You just made me like almost throw up in my mouth thinking about it right there.
I would be devastated.
As a fat kid,
I can say I would be devastated.
If we have a fire at camp for some reason, I don't do a lot of fires when I'm hunting, but if we do have one, I will fill my Mylar bag up, I will zip it, and I'll set it right by the fire. And it keeps that heat going, and then I'll finish whatever I need to do in camp, and then 20 minutes later I'm ready to go. I don't have to wrap it up in anything. You don't have to wrap it in anything, but I found that with the Mylar, they're so reflective. They're also called retort bags. Some people call them retort bags or retort pouch. But anyway, wrapping it in a little towel or even a shirt or a sleeping bag, if you want to risk that, it really helps a lot. If you insulate that bag a little bit, you don't have to, but it will cut your time down, and it'll make your end product a little better too.
Well, I've actually that was going to be my next thing I was going to talk about if you didn't talk about it. But so, do you have like a pouch for your bags?
I'm going to make one this year, and that's one of the things that we're thinking about adding to our arsenal in this course is sewing a super lightweight single bag where you can slide the bags that we use are 8.5 by 8.75.
Okay. Yeah.
And that bag can slide right in, and you can maybe even where it's got a Velcro closure would be really nice. And that you could pick it up and eat out of it, so that you wouldn't. Those things are hard to hold on to when they're
blazing hot. Yeah.
Blazing hot, boiling water in them.
But then they lose their heat, so it's like.
Yeah. So we're gonna experiment with that.
Makes one. Hyper light hiking gear makes one, and I think
does it fit multiple? I mean, does it fit multiple size bags?
Yeah, it's wider, and it's got like the top to where you with the Velcro thing like you're talking about. But
see, I want one custom so that when you open it, here's the thing: I hunt in grizzly country a lot. I do not want sloppy food all over my insulated thing. That's once I'm done with that bag and it goes into the double Ziploc trash enclosure, but my insulating thing does not. I want it pretty form fitting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally.
I don't want to be digging down into some cloth and brushing that cloth with my spoon on the way out.
Just so everybody knows, Mark, when he You know where I'm going with this. When he's processing an elk, he strips down to his skivvies, unless for some reason he's already lost those, and in which case he gets fully naked, and he skins out he actually processes the elk and quarters it up in his underwear.
Well, number one, I rarely wear underwear,
I know
so
that's
I'm
what I'm
usually
saying.
naked.
That's
I'm
what I
usually
just said.
naked. But I do, like, if I'm doing some long hike and it's kind of hot, I do wear those like ex officio,
Yeah,
mountain underwear. Those,
because it
what do they
keeps
say?
you from chafing.
You can wear them for 25 days or something like that.
Yeah, I do the
Um,
First Light
yeah,
undies.
so those kind of things.
Yeah.
So I do wear those from time to time, but it kind of depends on what mood you catch me if I'm going to be in underwear or naked.
Well, that's because I'm the same way, and that's why I brought it up and said I threw you under the bus though. But yeah, so I wear underwear when I go on long hikes or something like that. But I'm like you
So it's funny.
otherwise. So yes, you're processing the elk naked, like I said.
Yeah, so it's funny. I'm going to do a quick story. Since, podcasts are great for stories. Here's a quick story. So I was at the trailhead one time during the middle of the week, and I was the only guy at the trailhead, and these two dudes pulled up, and they're over across from me, and I've got my llamas tied up to the trailer. I'm getting my stuff together, and they keep looking over at me, and I keep thinking they're looking at the llamas, checking them out. And they finally come over as a pair, and they said, "Hey, dude, are you Treeline Pursuits?" I said, "Yeah, I am actually." Said, "Oh man, we watched your videos, blah blah blah." And I said, "Oh, that's cool." And we got to chatting, and so anyway, we kind of hit it off. And those guys, they had not killed an elk before, neither one of them, and they were kind of going in trying to get this done. And I had a bunch of days to hunt. I wasn't even really. I mean, I was ready to kill an elk, but I wasn't really looking to kill an elk. I was just kind of checking out this area. First time I've been in this area. And I said, "What? If you guys want to just go with me and camp, I mean, I'm welcome. You're welcome. I don't want to, you do what you want." I said, "But I'm not going to go that far on this first camp set up." And I said, "If you want me to call for you tomorrow," I said, "I'd be glad to." And they're like, "Oh, that'd be great." So we did. No big deal. It's fun. Hung out with these two guys. Next morning we get up, bull bugle, and ride at camp. Called this bull in, I think 3 times. I couldn't get shots. So finally I backed up, and long story, but this bull finally walks by this dude and 50-yard shot. And he made a freaking beautiful shot. It couldn't have been more perfect. Just a perfect shot. Elk runs out into a wide open field, tips over right in front of us. So they're so pumped. First elk they've ever killed. Big deal. It's a big deal. And so we get out there, and I'm like, "Well, I mean, you guys need help with this part." And they didn't really know 100% how to do it. Obviously, I hadn't done it before. So, well, there's this thing. I'm like, I got to strip down to my underwear. It's going to be weird, but that's kind of the way I do it.
Yeah.
Just because I'm in here for 10 days. We're in grizzly area. I mean, I don't want blood on stuff. So these two dudes, they're like, "Well, we should probably just do it too." I'm like, "Well,
Okay then.
that's good." So we all stripped down our underwear and processed out together. We never met each other.
At least you had underwear on though, right, Mark?
I was wearing underwear on that trip, thank
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, there you go.
So anyway, it's a good story for everybody.
So let's finish up. We'll finish up talking about equipment, and then
Yeah.
we'll transition into recipes.
Okay, so vacuum sealer. I really recommend, not necessarily for the vacuum part of it, but you want to get one that can do the vacuum plus the sealer, or the sealer by itself. And this is what I was kind of alluding to earlier. What I like to do is, I don't know if you do this or not with these Mylar bags. Like I said, I've never had a puncture. I've never had an issue. But the way I approach it is I squeeze out a little bit of air out of the bag where it cuts a little bit of the bulk down. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, you want to, yeah.
And then I seal it only, because what that does is kind of like that, kind of like those puffy, whatever, packing material you get, it creates an air pocket in there, and it keeps you from crushing the sharp edges of the dehydrated part of it, meals in the bag. So I really like that. It's been super successful for me. I know a lot of guys that pull vacuum on them and get them down as small as they can. It works fine. I've done it. I've never had a problem with it. But I just found that squeezing out most of the air, but leaving just a little in and using the seal function only. You want to get a sealer. If you're going to use Mylar bags, you really want a sealer that can do about 400 degrees.
So you don't throw an oxygen absorber in there?
No, I haven't got to that yet.
Okay.
Sorry. But yeah, so the sealer, vacuum sealer. And then the last thing is, like you said, the oxygen absorber. So on my meals, I go overkill on the oxygen absorber. So these things are not created. What's interesting is you probably know this, but you buy the oxygen absorbing packets based on the size of the bag and what's going in it.
I always throw doubles in.
Yeah. Well, I don't put doubles. I put 200cc ones in.
Those are big dogs.
And they're not even that much more expensive than the smaller ones, to be honest. I mean, they're fairly cheap. But what it not only does it, it helps keep the freshness, but it takes the oxygen. Basically, it removes the oxygen so that you don't get aerobic microorganisms growing.
Yes.
No fungus and stuff like that. You're keeping it increases your shelf life. It kind of helps prevent the oils. Like if you're dehydrating meats and things that have oils or gravies, like your new thing, they can get rancid pretty quick if you don't take that oxygen out.
Yep.
Now I'll just mention this too. I store all of my meals in the freezer. Don't have to by any means, and I'm not even sure it's a good idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I don't know that.
Because like even coffee, a lot of people do that, but you are absolutely never, ever, ever supposed to put coffee in the freezer.
Coffee.
Yeah, but I'm just saying same thing.
Well, number one, I hate coffee.
Well, that's
I have to force myself to drink it.
So
I've had good luck with my meals in the freezer. I'm kind of if you don't get it completely dehydrated and your quality control is a little off or what, there's things that could go wrong. But you certainly do not have to do it. If you're putting the oxygen absorbers in and you're doing a quality dehydration job, it's designed that is not required. So I'm not endorsing that. I'm just saying that's what I do for the most part. And I've had good luck with it. I have not had freezer burn. I have not had staleness. I have not had, but let's be honest, my meals are not making it past a year. Yeah. So I'm 6 months lifespan on almost all of my meals. So at the most, at the absolute most, like I did find a couple left over from last year that we had. So, but they tasted just as good as the day we made them. So, yeah. So that kind of, can't think of two oxygen absorber packets. I buy double. So anyway, what I try to do is I try to buy double the size that the bag recommends for me. And then I told you I do 2 different types of bags. I have used the sous vide bags. I think they're a good option, but they do not have the zipper. So you need to kind of understand what you're getting into there.
That zipper
vacuum sealer. A vacuum sealer that operates as a manual and an automatic.
See, I use an iron. So I have
an iron.
So
really?
Hang on. So back in the day, me and a couple buddies used to fly airplanes, and yeah. So remote control airplanes. Sorry, let's get back.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So we would fly these airplanes, and like my dad was building an airplane, and he had a thing to where they put like Mylar on the wings over the wood frame. I never got into building them. I didn't care. I just liked crashing them. But you could take the iron, and the iron was what shrank the plastic, the covering over the wings. And I take that thing.
Okay.
My buddy told me, because my buddy is like pretty big into prep type stuff. And so he's like, oh, yeah, I've been Mylaring so like right away I was like, well, where do you get them from? Oh, I get them from Ready Made Resources. Okay. Looked it up. Pretty good deal on there, for the Mylar bags, food grade, high quality bags. and I ordered some, and he's like, "Oh yeah, use your airplane iron for the coverings." And I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, turn it on one setting from the highest setting." Did it? Worked awesome. So I take a 2x4
Really?
and I set that bag on there and I just slide it across and it's nice clean. But I think if you're doing more of them than I do, it would probably be beneficial to do that with the other.
So do you have to slide it back and forth a couple times, or just one time it's done?
One time done.
Well, that may even be faster than a sealer.
But you can also do that with a household iron, from what I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never tried
And
it.
you just take it, and I set my bag on the counter, and I have a 2x4 that I cut, and I lay my bag, and it's like just the right height to where the lip of that bag sits on there, and I just hold the bag so it doesn't slide, and I slide it right across.
Interesting.
Yep.
Well, with my, if you gave vacuum sealers, again, they're not all created equal either. So what you want to look for with those is one that can go to 400. You also want, like I said, that can be operated as a sealer and a vacuum independently. And you really want one that has adjustable timer option. So a lot of them are preset to do whatever. You push it down, and then 7 seconds later or 5 seconds later, it beeps and stops. But I found with these Mylars, it's really nice if you can get a cheap, and the cheaper the version, the more adjustability they are, which is weird.
What?
The less you want the less automatic, the better.
Okay.
I've got a little one that you just push the little button above it and below it and change the seconds. Dude, the thing works so great, and it costs $80.
Okay.
And but you can play with the time so that you get a solid seal on that. Now, with the bags I'm talking about, it's not a huge deal because you're sealing them anyway with the zipper.
Well,
the vacuum part is just a double protection.
Yeah, I always
and I
seal them.
I highly recommend you do it as well. Don't rely on the Ziploc, but it is nice that you can do both on those bags.
Oxygen absorbers. Right before I went out to Montana, I made a bunch of packaroons. I don't know if you remember me eating those, but I like them bigger than a cookie scooper. But we'll get into that later. But anyway, long story short, I ordered.
Well, you're also addicted to Reese's peanut butter cups too. So.
Yeah, but I don't take those with me on the mountain, or on the trails, because I know I'll eat them and they melt. But but anyway. Besides the Reese's peanut butter cups, I ordered some from Amazon that were food-grade oxygen absorbers, and they were duds.
Really?
I threw them in there, and my bag did not shrink up, and it didn't do anything. And I'm like, what the heck? Yeah. So I was kind of not too happy about that.
Yeah. Well, so oxygen absorbers, another little thing is I put them in a mason jar with a seal lid.
Oh, that's smart. With a vacuum seal?
Do. Well, I don't pull a vacuum on it. I just use a mason jar, with the good seal top.
Yeah.
And that's not been canned, like a lid that has not been canned before. It's still got the sticky to it a little bit. And that seems to, whenever I pop that thing, it like pop. You can, you have to actually pry the lid off a little.
That's
every time.
Idea. I've been resealing mine every time.
It's a pain in the ass.
Well, then you're wasting bags too, just to cut it open again and use it in a couple days.
No, I take a small pint size and fill up a pint, whatever, 50 or whatever. I don't do a big one because I don't want to. Once you get down to a low number of oxygen absorbers, I don't want them to have to evacuate all their oxygen in a whole quart. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's smart. So use a little pint jar.
Do I do a small pint version of the mason jar? Works amazing for those.
That's a good idea. That's really good. I'm gonna have to start using that.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
All right, Mark. So this is where we're gonna end it for the gear and equipment, right? Are we
good.
Pretty good on that?
Yeah, I think we're solid.
All right, thank you.
once again, thank you so much for listening to the Publicly Challenged podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please subscribe on whatever platform it is you're listening to. Also, if you could leave a review, that would help us out. And you can check us out on Instagram or at publiclychallenged.com. And once again, thank you so much for listening to the show.